Welcome to this post big game edition, the Monday edition of Second City Sports, live and in living color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You want to know why? Because we said so. That's why. Also, too, you can watch any of our other five live shows, including this one, Second City Sports. If you happen to miss them, you can watch them and listen to them. Go back because they're archived and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you also follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Once again, that's Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And you want to follow our podcast, the audio version, Second City Sports, you can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms, okay? WARR on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media once again on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again at War Media, WARR Media, at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very different opinions. And if you want to have a comment on today's show during our less than now 2-hour extravaganza, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Typing in questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, or you still have not recovered from your Super Bowl parties from last night, Lakeena will politely give you the Beer Land Beer boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when I say that. Let's kick off this first hour of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. Lakeena by reviewing last night's Super Bowl, the NFL's championship edition, the 56th edition. We can say Super Bowl now, I guess, Lakeena, so the big game. Can we do that?
Sure, yes.
All right, as long as we don't get in trouble. The Los Angeles Rams are your 2021 Super Bowl champions after coming from behind and defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. Cooper Kupp, who did not play in the Super Bowl 3 years ago when the Rams lost to the Patriots in Atlanta. He was your Super Bowl MVP for the game last night. Matthew Stafford, will get into the numbers. He threw 2 turnovers, but came back and threw 2 touchdown passes. On the flip side, Joe Burrow was sacked multiple times. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that in just a minute. And the Cincinnati defense was great early, but they were shredded late. And there were other intangibles that we're going to discuss. Lakeena, let's start off with the first half. The Rams jumped up on the Cincinnati Bengals early 7-0, courtesy of a Matthew Stafford touchdown pass to OBJ, i.e. Odell Beckham Jr., for those of you scoring at home. Remember, I told you on Friday, Lakeena, Cooper Kupp was going to get double. He did early, but I expected OBJ to have a good game. He was on his way to doing that. He had 2 catches for 52 yards in the game last night, but he left the game late in the first half with a knee injury. And according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, it's a torn ACL. If that's the case, that stinks for him because he's a free agent and he's going to be gone for the year, unfortunately. Could he make it back in time to play some games next year? Let's hope so. But for right now, good news and bad news for Mr. OBJ.
Yeah, and that's the same knee injury he suffered, the same ACL that he suffered a couple years back. So, a re-tear of that. But and we talked about right before we started recording, Sid. I mean, was it, like an all-time great Super Bowl? No. I mean, was it sort of, was it better than last year's? Yes. Was it, it was kind of ho-hum for like maybe the early parts of the fourth quarter. I think they were still sort of, feeling out. I mean, you thought that maybe once the Rams started struck early, you thought, okay, maybe this will end up being a blowout. That wasn't the case. Stafford threw that interception, to Jefferson, or we're trying to get to Jefferson on the goal line, and they got intercepted by the Bengals corner, and it was just one of those things where you're sort of like, okay, this. And like I said before, I mean, this game could have went a different direction. It didn't go to any of those 4 directions. If you guys go back and listen to the Friday show, but I mean, it was fine. I mean, look, I'll say this for Super Bowls, I'll give it maybe a solid, B minus, B or something like that, because I think for me, look, it was better than last year's. I mean, that's all you could ask for there. And it actually ended up being a great game. And there were some questionable calls. Yes,
We'll get into
T.
them.
We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, look, I think Cooper Cup, showed you why a lot of people were lobbying for him to get MVP and regular season MVP, I should say. For me, I think this probably could have been one of the cases where it's only happened once, but you wonder that maybe they should have went the co-MVP route. The last time that happened, the only time that happened was Super Bowl 12 when Dallas hammered Denver pretty easily. Randy White and the late great Harvey Martin, won the MVP there for because their defense just manhandled that Broncos.
Mhm.
Go back and watch that Super. Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said. We'll get to all this in a second, but if you want to, go by the numbers here and let the Rams could get their running game going. They just like it was really a brick wall. They only
Mhm.
average under 2 yards per rush. That's like they're 15 to average fewer than that. Fewer than 2 yards in the Super Bowl. They're the only team to win that game, to win their Super Bowl. So that's just a remarkable that they were able to overcome that. Uh, Von Miller and Aaron Donald both had 2 sacks tonight. Well, they had like over 2 sacks, 3 sacks actually. And it's only the second time that both a pair of teammates both recorded 2 full sacks until since sacks became official back in the early '80s. The other instance was when Von Miller won MVP in that Super Bowl. He and DeMarcus Ware each had at least 2 sacks. So it was just all around great performance, especially once OBJ got hurt. You gotta think that the Rams defense had to step up, and those last couple of possessions, Bengals possessions they did. There was a little bit of a scuffle, like right before, I think like midway through the fourth quarter with Donald and a couple of the O-line guys from the
I want to touch
Bengals.
on that too later on in this hour. I want to touch
Okay,
on that and relate it back to closer to home. I'll bookmark that.
okay, so I think that woke him up. I think, especially once a big play. I think that was Higgins that he was trying to Burrow was trying to throw the ball to, and he came emerged and had that he had that little symbol, the ring symbol. I'm finally getting the ring. So look, like I said before. I mean, we'll get to all that in a second, but my overall impression was it was a solid game. An all time great game. No, better than last year's. Yes. But I thought it was an entertaining Super Bowl. Like I said, we'll get to all those parameters and such in a second. But what do you think?
Like I said before, I thought it was a very good game. I was entertained. It was a close game. Yeah, he had a couple of periods where whether it was low or boring, but hey, it was very competitive, and I have no problems with that. We'll go through all the other pomp and circumstances later on this hour. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as the game is concerned, yeah, I was entertained, and I didn't. It wasn't once that I wanted to turn the channel and watch something else because it was boring. I was very entertained. It came down to basically the last play, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what you wanted. We got it, and the correct team won.
Yeah, yeah,
The
I
better team
agree.
won, I should say.
Well, yeah, the better team won. I think. I think the Bengals had numerous chances to put the
Mhm.
game away. Tyler Boyd had a key drop that could have sealed the win for the Bengals. There were a couple of play calls. You think, yeah, maybe they should, given the ball to Mixon, especially in that fourth, that's third or fourth down, Pirine, but of course, Aaron Donald just like was a brick wall. He's just like, no, you're not getting that first down. Same thing, he rushed Burrow and he made an error throw and just it was totally up underneath Higgins's feet, and that was all she wrote there. So again, I mean, overall, like I said before, I mean, yeah, it was kind of whole hum, especially going into the third quarter, especially when the Bengals came out and had an interception, and then they led to a touchdown, and then it led to they had another turnover, and they led to a field goal, and now but look, the Rams did what they could, did what they had to do. The defense made some stops. Ramsey was a non-factor. I mean,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those days where, look, I mean, will it be like an all-time great Super Bowl? No, but like I said, it was a solid game. It was entertaining. Like I said before, it was better than last year. I'm gonna keep preface that, but yeah, I thought it was an overall good game.
You listen to Second City Sports, the post big game edition, the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakeena here with you. Wrapping up the first quarter scoring, Evan McPherson nailed a 29-yard field goal to cut the lead to 7-3 as the Bengals got on the board. As I think I told you on Friday, if they was going to score in their first possession, it would be a field goal. That's exactly what happened. In the second quarter, Cooper Kupp scored one of his first two touchdowns on an 11-yard pass for Matthew Stafford. The 2-point pass conversion failed for the Rams, so that's why it was 13-3. The halftime score is 13-10, courtesy of T. Higgins' touchdown catch from a halfback pass option, courtesy of Joe Mixon. And so the Bengals finally got their game going in the second quarter. Lakeena, I told you on Friday, Joe Mixon would have to be a factor and run close to 100 yards for the Bengals to win this game. In that first half, it looked like he was the only one that got it going for the Bengals offensively.
Yeah, and I think that was a big key there, and that pass was just remarkable. I think he played quarterback too for I think at one point I think I remember him saying that, but yeah, it was. Like I said before, I think the Bengals. I think I don't want to say that had Stafford not thrown that end zone interception. Could it have been a blowout? Maybe. People have wondered about that, but it's look. I always feel that maybe hindsight is 2020 with some of these type of things. There wasn't that I always talk to our buddy Kyle. There wasn't that big moment that big gotcha moment where as with other Super Bowls where a moment stood out. There was some questionable plays. There was some questionable calls. Some people felt like, but it's one of those things where you're sort of like, okay, that's it's look. I mean, Super Bowl. We talked about, will this lead to a dynasty? Will either one of these teams be back? Which team is, especially with all the rumors that maybe Aaron Donald might retire, or maybe Sean McVay might retire. Or, McVay now, being the youngest coach to ever win. he just turned 36 about not even a month ago. He takes over that record. It's just maybe Andrew Whitworth, you gotta be happy for him. He ended up winning Walter Payton Man of the Year. Now gets a Super Bowl ring. The rumors that he may retire. Eric Weddle's already said, "Hey, I got my ring. Bye." Like I see you.
I was on the couch for 2 years.
I was on the couch for 2 years. I was coaching my kids' high school team. Good night, everybody. I got my ring now. Bye. Exit stays left. So, but Cincy, I mean, I feel like maybe Cincy, it's going to be tough for them to go back because they're in the AFC and their division's hard too. I think I don't want to say they benefited, but I think that with the fact that, Baltimore had, a number of injuries, and Steelers, you don't know where they're going to go at quarterback, or Cleveland, they may have it a little easy, but I feel like they're going to have the tougher road considering that they have to deal with the Chiefs. They have to deal with the Chargers. We'll see where New England is next year. And, we'll see where Indy and, Tennessee, where they are. But, it's sort of like if you have to choose between the two, who's going to end up maybe going back to the Super Bowl next year? I think the Rams are the favorite, despite everybody saying that they're going to retire. But
if you have a question or comment for us from about yesterday's big game in the Rams winning the Super Bowl for the 56th edition, you can go to Facebook, Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page. Say that 5 times fast. Facebook, Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page, or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Typing in your questions or comments, so Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Coming out of halftime, Lakeena, Cincinnati, as you mentioned, they struck first with the T. Higgins 75-yard pass from Joe Burrow, which gave Cincinnati the lead at 17-13. But there was some controversy on that play. Both players, Higgins and Jalen Ramsey, were attacking and one another, grabbing each other's helmets, and that's how T. Higgins got free. And I said to myself at the time, the refs are going to let them decide the game on their own. They should do this the whole game. We'll get to the fourth quarter and what happened to all that madness in just a moment down in the Rams end zone. But this was a very good play. You mentioned Jalen Ramsey didn't have a good game. I thought after he gave up that big play to Jamar Chase early in the game in the first half, they kind of set him back for the rest of the night. And T. Higgins took advantage of it. The far side judge did not see it. He caught the ball and ran it down the left side for the touchdown. Cincinnati grabbed the lead there. and then Evan McPherson nailed the 38-yard field goal to give the Bengals a 7-point lead at 20-13. That was the last points that the Bengals would score in that game last night and for the season. And of course, Matt Gay closed the third quarter with the field goal from 41 yards out to cut that Bengals lead 20-16. Lakeena, that third quarter, the offense was still struggling for the Rams. That Rams defense kept them in it, in particular Aaron Donald and Von Miller. I think in that third quarter alone, the Rams had a total of 4 sacks.
Yeah, they did, and 7 sacks actually, if you want
I'm
to.
just saying for the third quarter.
For the third quarter, yeah,
Mhm.
that third quarter, I think it was defense that kept them in it. And look, I mean, the Bengals could easily pulled away from that game. They didn't. The fact that they were
Mhm.
able to, they held the Bengals to a field goal in that second possession that they had, and the fact that they were able to kind of, keep it sort of, like tamed. And I think that, especially once, like I said, once OBJ got hurt, I think the Rams defense realized that they're gonna have to keep them in it. So that's what they did. They shored up. They got more aggressive in the fourth quarter. They started blitzing Burrow and then more, and you
Mhm.
started seeing that. Okay, maybe this was a game that we thought that we were gonna get with the Rams defense. So once all that happened, and look, I think Ramsey did not play a good game. He'll probably be the first person to tell you that. You thought that maybe, this could have been like a breakout game for him. It wasn't. And he's going to have to live with that. But they won anyway. They made adjustments. And look, it's sort of one of those things where you wonder, okay, if it had not been for the Rams defense sort of, kicking it into gear, especially in the second half, who knows where this game would have went.
In the fourth quarter, scoring was the game-winning touchdown from Stafford to Cooper Kupp with a minute 25 left from a yard out. Lakeena, before that play, Cooper Kupp caught, which we thought at the time was the game-winning touchdown pass, but they were both offsetting penalties, one on each team. And then, of course, which set up that game-winning touchdown was that pass interference on Eli Apple. That call I did not have a problem with it because Eli Apple tucked on Cooper Kupp's jersey the whole way. You're not supposed to do that. So he got caught red-handed there. Was that the reason why the Bengals lost that game? No. But I understood why. They had Cooper Kupp in check all night. I believe he only had a total of 3 or 4 catches through the first 3 quarters. The Rams found him in the fourth quarter. Of course, we all thought that Rams offense, which struggled in the third quarter, was going to struggle into the fourth quarter, especially with the injury to Odell Beckham Jr. But there was a couple of guys that stepped up. Darrell Henderson out of the running back position. He was a better pass catcher out of the backfield. And Cooper Kupp, the things started to open up for him in the fourth, which led him to that game-winning touchdown catch.
Yeah, I think that drive, I mean, oh my gosh, that was a long drive
15
too.
plays.
One of probably like the the longest fourth quarter go-ahead touchdown drive by the number of plays in Super Bowl history. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're the Bengals, you're kicking yourself with that one too, because it's always something. They've lost all 3 Super Bowls they lost. They've only lost by 12 points. That's the total margin. But that's, I
Yeah.
mean, it's sort of, it's one of those things where, of course, if you remember the last, the game winning drive, with Joe Montana, John Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
and that meeting. So it's definitely, you feel for Cincy. And look, there were multiple reasons why Cincy lost that game. I mean, yeah, there were kind of some questionable calls late. I mean, I'm not freaking out over, I know, Bengals fans are not happy. I
Mm-hmm.
know that the schools are, they're, all the schools are closed today in Cincy. I know they're kind of, wallowing in that, but I've heard like people were crying this morning, Bengals fans, over the calls and such. But look, I mean, the Bengals have multiple chances to put this game away. It's just that the Rams defense sort of just said, no, you're not advancing the ball even further. I mean, the fourth quarter was kind of early on, was kind of ho hum up until that play,
Yeah.
that drive by the Rams. So I think it was just trying to get some stops. I mean, yes, there was some the holding call prior to that was a little bit suspect, but I mean, I guess that was you can say that was a makeup call from earlier, with Higgins, that he didn't get called for. The Apple one, that was, yes, that was the way
Mm-hmm.
he was tugging on Cup. I mean, that was definitely a foul there, but look, you could have made a stop, Cincy. I mean, look, your defense actually played pretty good. It was actually able to tame the Rams offense for the most part, but you just couldn't do it when it counted.
Yeah, and speaking of that Rams defense, what a way to end that game last night with Aaron Donald pressuring Joe Burrow to basically throw the ball off his rhythm. But in the beginning of that drive, I had the pleasure of watching the Super Bowl feed via ESPN International. They had the Monday Night Football crew calling the game: Louis
Mhm.
Riddick, Steve Levy, and Brian Greasy. And on that first play of that Cincinnati drive, which ended up to be 4 and out. Jamar Chase had a catch and he ran it down the sideline. I think he ran it past midfield. And if
Mhm.
you watch closely on that play, Jalen Ramsey trying to jump the route and he mistimed it by a couple of seconds. And I thought Louis Riddick made a great comment that Jalen Ramsey, he thought that he was trying to be selfish. I get he was trying to make a play, but yeah, basically he had Jamar Chase in check. You gave up a big play to him early in the game. He was a non-factor up until the last drive. But Jalen Ramsey, who, like you said, he did not have a great game. It really could have been worse for him right there. But thank goodness, if you're a Rams fan, it didn't turn out that way. But Aaron Donald had 2 sacks, I think 4 quarterback hits, and I
Mhm.
thought he should have gotten an MVP. I thought it should have been co-MVPs, him and Cooper Kupp. Unfortunately, some folks in the media don't use common sense. But with that being said, like you said, Von Miller showed up when he had to. And Aaron Donald, remind me to talk about that play when he hit Burrow almost out of bounds following this timeout. But uh, that third quarter right there kept that defense kept the Rams in it, and with that hit that Donald provided on Burrow, that woke that whole team up.
Yeah, and I think that and I feel like that particular play, that where he it was legal. He wasn't out of
Hmm.
Burrow was not out of bounds. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I know some of the O line guys kind of took that personally, but I feel like it was legal, and I think that that was a little bit of a scuffle. And the good news is they didn't call any flags. Yeah, I think both teams just got warnings. The players involved got warnings. I think that woke them up. I think that sort of like they needed something to kind of like get kind of wake everybody up, because I think with OBJ's injury and the fact that the Bengals, to take the lead at that point, and with everything else, they were driving and such, and I think that they needed something to kind of get kind of wake everybody up, and I think that scuffle, I think, did just that.
More on the review of Super Bowl 56 in the LA Rams Super Bowl championship from last night. Did you watch the halftime show? What did you think about the commercials? And will the Rams Super Bowl championship bring football back to its #1 spot in Los Angeles? We'll have our answers and a whole lot more. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports, live in the living color. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. NHL tomorrow night, the Blackhawks visit the Blues. 7 o'clock puck drop from St. Louis. Chicago 17-23-7, 41 points near the basement of the Central Division. The Blues winless in 2. They have 57 points, 13 points out of first place. Overall, they're 26-14-5. NBA tonight, the Bulls are home against the Timberwolves. That's a 7 o'clock tip-off at United Center. Chicago tied with Cleveland and Milwaukee, a game and a half out of first place behind the Heat in the Eastern Conference. Quick turnaround, right back at it tomorrow night, hosting the Thunder. Former Bears quarterback Jim McMahon says he's in favor of a new stadium at Arlington Heights. Last September, the Bears said they agreed to buy the former Arlington International Racecourse for close to $200 million. They expect to close on it sometime in the next year. For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel teaches you conversations that you will actually use. With 14 languages and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Hey team, it's a full house. We got to pick up the pace.
At Hank's Restaurant, the line goes around the block.
Is this for 12? Okay, I need the truffle oil drizzle.
What he needs is another line cook.
Oh man, are the quail breasts still in the sous vide? Dave, can you keep an eye on that, please?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the hashtag Monday edition, the hashtag post big game review of the Super Bowl between the Rams and the Bengals. We're live in the 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. Lakeena, we teased this before the break. The Aaron Donald hit on Joe Burrow right in midway through that third quarter. And like you say, it was a scuffle, but things really didn't get out of hand. I like the way the Cincinnati Bengals teammates, in particular his offensive linemen, they got in Aaron Donald's face and say, hey, that's our quarterback. You don't do that. And I know we said this before, that sparked the whole attitude and it turned that game around, not just for that defense for the Rams, but for that whole football team. I was thinking about this last night when I watched it live. I hope that new Chicago Bears GM Ryan Poles is looking at this. Of course, if you read the story over the past couple of weeks, of course, we said this on our previous shows, that the new coaching staffs are looking at film from this past season. And especially with the Bears, what now ex-head coach Matt Nagy did, you're going to have 3 or 4 garbage cans to barf to see what you're watching if you're this new coaching staff with Matt Eberflus. But I hope that GM Ryan Poles watched that very closely last night. I know the story came out that he didn't like the way the lack of attitude, I'm just paraphrasing here, the lack of attitude that the previous regime had with Matt Nagy, in particular that hit on Justin Fields in the preseason against Buffalo. Of course, you know what happened on Monday night. Tevin Jenkins, the rookie, he took up for Justin Fields, but all the rest of the other guys were MIA. I hope that new GM Ryan Poles takes that film and shows it to his guys right before training camp. This is the attitude we're going to set. You either in or you out. When one of your guys is down, you stick up for him, you take up for him unless they do something absolutely stupid. But regardless of that, that's your quarterback. Justin Fields is our franchise quarterback. If something happens to you, that's your guy. You take up for him. You take up for your guys. You really have to play for one another and you stick up for one another.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, yes, you commend like I say, you commend the Bengals, the O line for sticking up for their guy, that's their quarterback and such. But also at the same time too, like I said, I mean, the Rams, I kind of woke up the Rams, I think, in a little bit in a lot of ways because they were very aggressive, until then. Of course, you had that long drive for the that last possession. So yeah, it's sort of one of those things where sometimes it can spark the team on both ends. Sometimes it sparks it sparks the other team, but other times it can spark you. And look, I think that's what you want. I think you want your O-line to defend their guy, your friend, especially you have franchise QB. Now, as far as this particular scuffle, I mean, look, I think hopefully this will wake up the Bengals brass and perhaps maybe, hey, why don't you invest in an O-line for your franchise quarterback? And I think that's what the Bears need to do. So it's sort of one of those things where it's sort of a catch-22 in the end. But like I said before, I mean, look, it's one of those, like I said, I think that play, I think, woke the Rams up, I think, because like I said, they needed that pick-me-up, especially, I'm sure they were getting discouraged with OBJ, hurt and such. So I think they really needed that kind of, that sort of that passion, from Donald, and then just hey, come on, guys, let's get going here. We're still in this. So, and they were able to kind of do that. And look, I think if you're the Bengals, like I said before, invest in some O-line. You're going to have to do it through the draft because it's hard to find an O-line, through free agency. But, like I said, I think that particular play, I don't want to say it kind of turned the corner for the Rams, but I think it definitely sort of gave them that pick-me-up that they desperately needed.
Taking a look at the numbers from last night's contest. First, for the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, 26 of 40 for 283 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and 2 interceptions. His quarterback rating was at a stellar 89.9. In the rushing department, Cam Akers, 13 carries, 21 yards. Cooper Kupp had a carry for 7 yards on the end around. Darrell Henderson, 4 carries for 7 yards. Matthew Stafford, 3 carries for 6. Sony Michel, 2 carries for 2 yards. In the receiving department, your MVP, Cooper Kupp, had 8 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was targeted 10 times. Odell Beckham Jr., as I mentioned earlier, 2 catches, 50 yards in the first quarter touchdown before he left the game with a knee injury. And Darrell Henderson out of the backfield, as I mentioned earlier, 3 catches for 43 yards. Van Jefferson, congratulations on him for becoming a father. And his famous father, Sean Jefferson, who I remember watching playing for back in the day, he's now a grandfather. Van Jefferson, the rookie wide receiver, had 4 catches for 23 yards.
Well, and also, I know some people were wondering, like, how come he didn't have a great game. Look, I mean, his wife, her water broke like, right there at the game, so it might have been why that he might have been distracted. They had a young son, by the way, now in addition to their daughter, and
Mhm.
it's sort of one of those things where like I said before, I mean, the run game, was not existent for the Rams, but again, they were able to kind of compensate and kind of made it work. I mean, they tried. They tried with Akers, they tried with Henderson Jr. It was just like a brick wall. It wasn't happening. So they abandoned that, and they decided to go on the ground, on the air, and that's what ended up happening. Henderson made some key catches as well, and also to, like I said, of course, Cup did what he did. So yeah, it's sort of like I said before. I think they knew they tried to be aggressive. It wasn't with the run game, it didn't work, but yet they were able to kind of come back and use the air attack to kind of sort of compensate that, and they were able to kind of pull it off late. So especially in that, remember, if you remember in that 15 play drive, it was kind of like they got a little bit of the run game going, but it was mostly
Mhm.
air and of course penalties and such. So that kind of helped sort of propel that and perhaps ultimately end up winning the game.
On the flip side for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow, 22 of 33, 263 yards, a touchdown, and his quarterback rating was at a 101.0. In the rushing department, Joe Mixon, 15 carries, 72 yards, and his average was a 4.8. Receiving wise, T. Higgins, the only receiver that had a 100-yard game. He had 4 catches for exactly 100 yards. So of course, his longest catch was that 75-yard touchdown catch to start the second half. Jamar Chase, 5 catches, 89 yards. Tyler Boyd, 5 catches for 48. CJ Uzama, the tight end who was injured from the AFC title game, he had 2 catches for 11 yards. Lakeena and the Cincinnati defense sacked Joe Burrow only twice. Lakeena, Cincinnati had it going on from the second quarter into the early in the second half, but after that field goal, midway through the third quarter, that's what we mentioned. The Rams defense turned it on. I don't know what was going through the mind of Zach Taylor. Was he trying to be conservative or what? But it just seemed like that magic was. Give credit to the Rams defense first of all, but it just seemed like that magic and that consistency, especially they got away from the running game, was gone from midway through the second half and towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I think that's sort of I think because they abandoned their run game. I think especially those last couple of plays, late in that last possession. I think Mixon was the guy that kind of got you to, that kept you in the game, that helped you, get into that rhythm of perhaps getting the lead. And unfortunately, those last couple of plays, you only needed what about a yard and a half. Why didn't you run the ball? You tried to
Mm-hmm.
pass it. And then look, I know Aaron Donald was like a man possessed. He tried to come right through and with like 2 guys and got to Burrow and was able to force Burrow to make that errant throw. But again, you gave it to P Ryan in the third down play, and then you gave then you tried to pass it, and then it was just like what's the point in that? So yeah, I think they abandoned the run game late in that game, and I kind of feel like it was sort of like right there for them to win it, and they had their shots to do that, but they just weren't able to pull it out.
Once again, we say congratulations to the 2021 Super Bowl champion LA Rams. This is their second title in franchise history. Of course, the first one was in 1999 when they were in St. Louis. Of course, the greatest show on turf, led by Hall of Famers Kurt Warner and Isaac Bruce, and hopefully soon to be Hall of Famer Torrey Holt. Of course, Hall of Famer now Marshall Faulk, the running back. Lakeena, the city of Los Angeles, as we know, sports-wise, that's a LA Dodger town, a Laker town. Will this Super Bowl win plant the flag as far as being a football town for the city of Los Angeles? Because we talked about before with the 49er, with that new stadium, SoFi Stadium. We have a whole lot of transplanters from around the United States living in Los Angeles. And you still have the 3 or 4 teams in the state of California alone. You still have a lot of Raiders fans from their days when the Raiders were in Los Angeles in the 80s into the mid-90s. You still have a lot of Raiders fans in the city of Los Angeles. You have a lot of 49ers fans in Los Angeles. We saw that in the NFC title game, and of course, going back to the last game of the regular season there. And so, and some people locally in Los Angeles have questioned that, will this bring football to the forefront in terms of sports in Los Angeles? The Chargers, even though they missed the playoffs this year, they're starting to gain momentum in terms of bringing new fans in, thanks to second-year quarterback Justin Herbert. But will the Rams plant their flag as far as football being a football town in the city of Angels?
It's going to be tough, but look, the Rams are the third franchise to win a Super Bowl in two different cities, joining the Colts and also to the aforementioned Raiders. I mean, you really, can you find a Rams fan somewhere? I mean, people were they were making a big. No, I'm serious. I mean, they were making a big deal about perhaps maybe a lot of 49ers fans, trying to come in for the NFC Championship game. So, and I'm sure, look, you saw there were a lot of Bengals fans. I would say maybe it was supposed to be 50-50. I mean, I'm sure there were like about 50% Bengals fans, maybe 30% Rams fans, and maybe like 20% like corporate people. So that's, it was sort of that they didn't have a home field there. But, look, I'm sure they can. I mean, if they can sustain it, I mean, look, like, despite what, everything, basically everybody's saying they're going to retire. I'm sure some of them will. I think some of them probably may not. But, it's gonna be tough, but if they can sustain it, I mean, sure. I mean, like, I think Los Angeles, like everybody else, it's not like the others. Like, it's not like here in Chicago or New York. You got a lot of transplants there, going to living in Los Angeles. So it's gonna be tough. But like I said, if they get, if you win, they'll come, and if they keep winning, people will come. So we'll see.
I know there was a story out there that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell told Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, when he moved this team back to Los Angeles. He said, "I want the Rams to be like the LA Lakers of the NFL, having a bunch of celebrities there." Of course, we saw them all yesterday because it was a Super Bowl, from Jennifer Lopez to LeBron James and countless other celebrities. And and I know Cedric the Entertainer has been to a few games, Anthony Anderson, throughout the regular season. But I get that you want the NFL to do well in Los Angeles if you're the National Football League. I get it, but I just don't get the sense that football, I'm sure it's going to stay there now because of the new stadium and what the Rams did as far as winning the Super Bowl title last night. But I think it's going to be a distant third because, like I said, it's a Dodger town and it's a Laker town. You can go 1-1-8. It depends on who's hot between the Dodgers and the Lakers. Right now, I listen to a lot of sports talk radio from throughout the country, including Los Angeles. Right now, with the Lakers struggling, we'll get to them in the next hour. But as of right now, that's still a Dodgers town, even though the MLB currently still in the lockout.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, if they win, I think that'll change. But again, we'll see. I mean, the Rams, even when they were there the first time they were in Los Angeles, I mean, they weren't really, Lakers were winning championships. The Dodgers were still, competing for a playoff spot. So it's probably still, the story hasn't changed in like 20 years. So it's 20 or 25 years. So it's not, for me, it's sort of like, look, if you win, fine. And I don't think, like, I'm sure Stan Kroenke, I think he'll take the time. I know people were criticizing him, with his sort of mundane reaction after winning the Super Bowl. But look, I think that's sort of kind of his personality. It's kind of more laid back, so it's not really that big of a deal. But I think as long as they're making money and as long as people are going to games, and that's what's happening, they are going to the games. So I don't think they mind too much of it. I mean, I'm sure like they would love to have a fan base there, with the Rams at some point. But like I said, it'll just have to wait out and see.
Before we move on to the other pomps and circumstances from the big game last night, I know a lot of commentators and pundits were making this point last night and earlier today that the Rams were going all in terms of winning the Super Bowl, which it did work. You ask them to do it again 10 times over, they'll do it again if it results in a championship. Shout out to GM Les Snead, who is backed up by owner Stan Kroenke of the Rams to go out and make these moves. Remember, we're still in the hard cap. We're still in the salary cap era in the NFL. That's not going to change anytime soon. And some of the pundits were saying this: could this be the new model or the new model to go in terms of winning Super Bowls? I still believe that you had to bottom out for a couple of years, and you had to have the right people in place in terms of scouting and general managers to help draft players that fit your system, whatever that system is. You talked about it earlier, Lakeena. Offensive line. If you're an offensive lineman that's a free agent, there's a reason why, because good offensive linemen and talented studs like that on the line, they get drafted. And so it has to take about 2 or 3 years. I know most of these owners are impatient, but you have to wait, be patient. And I know many fan bases are not willing to be that patient. I know you could turn things around quickly in the NFL, but you still have to have your core guys come via the draft. Free agency is supposed to boost your team, not have your team for 1 and 2 years, then you had to restart all over again.
Well, I think that this Super Bowl kind of, they get, gave the contrast. You have, one team that, builds, superstars and going all in and such. But, for the Bengals, look, everybody, most of the guys there are under 30, at least most, if not all of them. So, we'll see if they can get back there. I mean, we'll see if either team, gets there first. I think, like I said, I think the Bengals are going to have the first place schedule next year. So it's going to be tough for them, I think. I think the Rams, depending on, if Rodgers, doesn't lead the Packers, if and other, sort of parameters, we'll see where everyone else is by that point. But yeah, it's like I said before, look, there's really no like rhyme or reason or, of, that either way of doing it is wrong. I think, look, it's just that in the case with the Rams, I mean, look, we saw, quote unquote super teams, and it didn't, pan out. We saw what happened with Philly, of course. Vince Young fame. This is years ago, but Vince Young famously said, "Hey, we got a super team." They underachieved. So this is one of those cases where they didn't say it out loud, but we all saw it. They were a super team, and look, it ended up working out for them.
You're listening to Second City Sports, rather, on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, let's go to the pop and circumstances regarding Super Bowl 56. Did you catch the halftime show? It was featuring Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, local sensation Kendrick Lamar from LA, and 50 Cent, or 50 Cent as the young kids will call him. Did you catch it last night? If so, what were your thoughts? Hit us up on our Facebook page at Sports Zone Chicago or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, what were your thoughts on last night's halftime show?
I mean, it was a solid. I think it was better than last year's halftime show. I mean, I kind of feel
you
like
said it was better than J-Lo and Shakira shaking their tail feathers a couple years ago.
I mean that was okay. I know people were saying that was I was going to get into it with some friends yesterday on Twitter that that one was better than this one. I'm like, it wasn't really it was okay. I mean, they're both great performers, but to me, it really didn't stand out to me. I mean, because I've seen them do that in concert, so I'm like, okay, whatever. But I thought the Bruno Mars from a few years back from that Super Bowl was really good. I think this one, kind of, tops, and they were in that top, if you want to go recent, look, it's going to be hard to beat the Prince one, in 41, of course, where the Bears, lost to the Colts, but, and, Prince performed in the rain and all the colors and stuff, they were still able to pull it off despite the steady rain. But I think people need to remember too. I mean, this was sort of like our generation, Sid, with all the stuff. We'll get to the commercials in a second because it's sort of a similar type of thing. But look, I think Kendrick had the best performance out of all of them. I think some of the song. I know some people were kind of critical of the song choices. Look, they were going to do like the more hardcore like stuff with the other lyrics and things like that. They were going to go with the more radio friendly mainstream hits like California Love and those type.
As we told you they were going to do on Friday.
We told you guys that. So, hey, look, we warned y'all that they were going to go that route. So, and that's what they did. And, I think Mary J got like another song, but, Just Fine would have been a better choice, especially, no more drama with the Super Bowl. It just kind of like brought down the mood. So I wasn't really a fan of that. We didn't see a hologram. I thought that would have been corny with, Tupac or Nipsey Hussle. I mean, we didn't get any of that. I think that would have been corny, but yeah, I thought it was. Look, if you want to go by recent history, yes, people already said it was the best Super Bowl halftime performance of all time. No, but I will say this: hey, Glendale, Arizona, you got a lot to live up to. So we'll see what they do next year.
As you guys know, I don't give a damn about the Super Bowl halftime shows. The last couple halftime shows I gave a damn about was the 2012 Super Bowl between the 49ers and Baltimore, which, the lights went out in that second half. That was when Beyonce did it. She brought out Michelle and Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child. I thought that was a very good Super Bowl halftime show. Yours surely won $35 for predicting the first song they performed from my friend Joe. Turned $5 into $35. Thank you very much. But I thought that was the last great halftime show that I've seen personally. And, of course, going back a decade before with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, we all know what happened with that, and we don't have to go into that. But outside those two, Lakeena, I don't remember a halftime performance because I don't care about them because it's not the performers. I know they're trying to appease to the baby boomers and everybody else. But Lakeena, I will say this about the halftime performance last night. I caught some of it. Is the NFL is starting to cater towards people our age and a little bit younger. And so let's see if that trend continues next year. So I heard and read a whole lot of good reviews on it. Like you said, Glendale, Arizona next year is going to have a whole lot of pressure. Who they're going to get to perform? Will they reach out to more artists from the late 80s and early 90s? Me personally, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I wish they'd reach out to Teddy Riley and Aaron Hall and Guy, have them kiss and make up and perform. I know that's not going to happen, but I would like to see it myself.
Good luck. Yes, good luck to you on that one, Sid, because I don't think that's happening. For those who don't know what's going on, Google it. Google's your friend, folks. This is one of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think they realized, especially what happened last year with The Weeknd, it didn't really it didn't gel. Plus, it actually didn't help either that that Super Bowl was a blowout, so that didn't help people's mood there either. But like I said, I think. Look, I think like I said before, the Bruno Mars one from Super Bowl 38, 48, I should say, and with the Red Chili Peppers and such. I mean, that was fine. Look, I like that one. That was, like I said, if you're going by again for the last 15, 20 years, outside the Prince one, that was probably the best one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, people kept saying, Coldplay. I mean, Lady Gaga, I mean, it was okay, but again, it didn't really grab me. So, I think for folks, I think that, people felt that, people really wanted this to happen, and this is going to be catered towards more for our generation, like you said, Sid. It's just like, you know what? I'll say this one was really good. Like I said before, outside the Prince one, I think this will probably be number 2 or 3 for a lot of folks now.
Yeah, like I said, my personal favorite is Prince. I'm not saying it because he's passed away, but I felt that way at the time. That was on tops, of course, Beyonce, as I mentioned, from the 2012 Super Bowl, 49ers and Ravens. And, of course, Michael Jackson started it all with that Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys when they met the first time in Pasadena.
Yes.
Of course, Michael Jackson was the first superstar to perform a halftime show. That was great. I watched that over the weekend. I had chills all over again. So, and don't forget, Diana Ross performed in 1995 that was the Steelers and Cowboys Super Bowl. Miss Eating Alive from 1985.
Yes.
Of course, she had other hits before that time, but her performance wasn't too bad either.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this in previous years that if you want to go by Super Bowl halftime shows, like I said, Michael Jackson kind of changed sort of all of that. I mean, they were going with mostly like themes, with the cities and such. Of course, the Mardi Gras one from I think it was at the Super Bowl, I think 9, I think, and there were like a few others. I mean, they like you said, they really didn't do any of the big deal. Like you said, Michael Jackson was really the first time they actually went with with artists, contemporary, artists of whoever was from that time. So look, for me, do a Battle of the Bands type of thing if you really want to give people attention. I'm sure.
I was just getting ready to say, you read my mind. Let's, we watched these versus battles over the last year and a half or so. Let's get that going.
Yeah, get a couple of artists, who we haven't seen, or we haven't heard from in a minute. Maybe do a halftime show there. I mean, it's sort of, I think this one's sort of people are going to change it up a bit. But like I said before, I mean, next year, good luck. Like I said, good luck, Glendale, Arizona, because you're going to have a lot to live up to. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, this was the first Super Bowl in the last few years I've actually cared about. So I think for me, like I said, I grew up watching all those artists and such, and all of it, was really good. I mean, yes, the song. Look, we told y'all about the song choices, folks. I mean, I don't know what more we could have told y'all, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I'll give it a solid B plus. I mean, like I said, it wasn't oh my god, this was the greatest halftime show ever, because some of our old friends were saying this, but I thought it was solid. I mean, look good, look better than last year with The Weeknd. Sorry, Weeknd, but you kind of. It wasn't your fault either, but I think it was more the game wasn't a very good game. It was already a blowout by then, but.
Yeah, Eminem taking a knee. Of course, the NFL defending us, saying we didn't tell him not to do that. Blah blah blah. We won't get into that. Of course, he has a beard now, and of course, 50 Cent trying to do his best. Lionel Richie dancing on the ceiling, invitation from '86, performing upside down. Okay, I got what he was trying to do, but I didn't need that. But besides that, I was okay with it. It was above average. It was slightly above average to, like you say, B minus, B plus. I'll give it that. I'll be fair.
Real quick, as we were up against it, what about commercials? Did they commercials stand out?
Like I said, I watched the world broadcast, so I didn't get to see the commercials live. But the couple that I caught off of social media was the Coinbase one with the Pong theme.
With the QR
with the barcodes going back and forth.
Yeah.
I did like that. And the Doritos commercial, as we talked about before we went on live. I
Totally.
like that one was as well.
Yeah, that was a good one too. I like the Toyota one with the Joneses. Of course, all of them related with Tommy Lee Jones and Leslie Jones and Rashida Jones and Nick Jonas. That was a running joke there. I like that one. That was pretty funny. The crypto commercials kind of went way over my head. Like, wait, what, huh? Like, I don't. Although I like the Larry David one. That was pretty funny. The LeBron one, where President LeBron was talking to LeBron when he was a senior in high school in 2003. That was sort of kind of weird, but I guess if you were to visit your younger self, would you tell them about cryptocurrency? I guess that was the theme there. I just didn't get it. I like the Israel's one, like you said. I like the Lays with Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, the car commercials are really cool too with the electric cars and such. The car commercials usually are good ones. The Google Pixel one kind of like okay, with the darker skin and everything, like okay, where were they going with this? Like I was scared for like the first 5 seconds. Oh, okay, I get what they're saying now. It was sort of weird, but yeah, I think commercials were okay. I mean, they were like the best. I think the fact that some of the commercials you can get on YouTube, you can kind of see you already have your impressions of it, so. The latest commercials with with all the Hall of Fame players and Marshawn Lynch and such. I thought that they actually aired an extended version of it. I know that commercial had already aired during the conference championship games, but they actually had a 60-second version of it too, a full length version. So I thought that was okay. But a real quick your studs and duds for a Super Bowl.
Of course. Number 55 from the Bengals. I forgot to write his name down, but I know he had a penalty flag was called on him late in the game rather. But number 55 for the Bengals, he had a great game. I thought he gets my stud. My other stud, of course, Cooper Kupp, the Super Bowl MVP for the Rams, and I'll give a third stud to Sean McVay. He really had to show what he was made of. We told you, we asked Randy Cross, our good friend, on Friday, how much pressure was on him, given the fact what happened to him against Bill Belichick 3 years ago in Atlanta. So those are my 3 studs.
Yeah, my 3 studs are Matt Stafford, who wasn't, didn't like those 2 early interceptions deter him. He was really good. I think the Rams defense. Duh. I mean, come on. Especially in the second half, they stepped up their game a little bit, ended up with 7 total sacks on Joe Burrow. Well, I'll go off the box. I'll go with Maria Taylor and the rest of the NBC crew. They did a great job. I only watched the last 3 hours of it, so I didn't really, get into it. But yeah, she and I believe Peter King are doing a documentary on the sort of the rise of Black quarterbacks that's going to air next year. So you look out for that on the Peacock app. But yeah, those are my 3 studs. Duds, real quick.
The lack of running game for Cincinnati in that second half, that I'll blame head coach Zach Taylor for that. And of course, the referees, especially not the Eli Apple call, but the previous call where they had offsetting penalties. Now they decided to throw out the flags. Those are my duds for me.
Oh, my bonus stud was Sam Hubbard from the Bengals. He kept his guys in it. He was able to kind of tame the Rams offense for a little bit. So he's my stud. Loved him at Ohio State. I'm glad he's doing very well with the Buckeyes. He's sort of the one of the name guys on that defense for the Bengals. I'll say duds. Oh gosh, I don't think I have. I think you stole all of mine. And I'll say there's also NBC for kind of rushing off the Super Bowl. It's sort of I know that.
Oh yeah, to get to the Winter Olympics. I did see that.
That was a little bit rushed. I think that you could have waited another 10 minutes. I know the Americans had 2 contenders for that. The winner. It's basically a single person bobsled. That's basically what mono bob is. I know people were wondering what the hell is that. That's basically what it is. I know we had a couple Americans contend for that. They didn't get to like 30 minutes after that. So you could have did another 15 minutes. Then you could have. By the time you got there, you could have gotten to the Americans. So. I think NBC, not really a dud necessarily, but just the fact that, okay, come on, guys, you could have, maybe could have, had to extend your post game a little bit, but they did a nice job, kind of transitioning that. I know that was hard, but still.
I know we up against it for our first hour, but who was that inactive player for Cincinnati, which they got called for that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty? My guy was in a hoodie, white socks, and some flip flops. Or as you young kids call it, slides. Dude, you look like crap. Get your ass back on the bench. Whoever his name is from Cincinnati, you get a dud for me. You look like crap.
Vernon Hargraves. He's in their practice squad now. He was one of their players there. But yeah, I was wondering who that was. And then of course that's him. Yep, that's Vernon Hargraves for you.
Okay. Get your ass back on the bench.
real quick though, you think should Aaron Donald retire? Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes. I think we were talking about it a little bit on our last episode, but yes, selfishly, I want to see him play a couple more years, but if he decides to hang it up, so be it. He had a heck of a career.
8-time Pro Bowl, 7-time first team All Pro Bowl, 3-time defensive player of the year, 2010's All-Decade team, and has only missed 2 games. All of them were not injury related. It was more for resting. So yeah, I think he is too. He's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. Shit, I don't think he's gonna retire though. I think they're gonna stay and go for one more. Try to get one more.
Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with the Chicago Bulls. They are making news on and off the court, plus the best and worst from the association over the weekend. In college basketball, the Fighting Illini are heading down the home stretch. They got a big win at home yesterday against the Northwestern Wildcats. And yours truly will dig in the craze as we celebrate Black History Month and a whole lot more. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live and in living color. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Throws the fade, back shoulder. Cooper Kupp's got it! Cooper Kupp brings it in! Touchdown! Touchdown! Touchdown, LA! With 1:25 remaining, the Rams are back on the high side. 15 plays, 79 yards.
Rams radio with call at the Super Bowl. A 79-yard drive capped by Cooper Kupp's touchdown reception with 1:25 remaining pushed the Rams to a 23-20 win over the Bengals. The Rams winning their first NFL title since 1999 when they were based in St. Louis. It's their first representing Los Angeles since 1951. Kupp was named the Super Bowl MVP, 4 receptions, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns.
For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
I need postcards printed and designed. Oh, and a targeted direct mail campaign.
It's possible at Staples.
I need my presentation printed, bound, and perfect.
Also possible with Staples Print Big Promise. Your small business marketing will make a big impact. And right now, get 20% off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Explore what's new at Staples, the working and learning store. Ends 2/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details.
Exergen would like you to know about an important new study by the FDA. It confirms what the medical community has always known. Non-contact thermometers are not accurate, and they fail to meet FDA requirements for accuracy in labeling. With new strains of COVID on the rise, we can't afford to tolerate rampant false temperature readings from non-contact thermometers. Accurate temperature measurements are essential. You need Exergen thermometers because they are accurate and backed by over 100 clinical studies. Be sure, be accurate with Exergen. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, live in 11 color, the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, it's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
We have around 50 minutes or so left in this extravaganza for today. If you have any questions or comments during any of our topics on today's show, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of Second City Sports by discussing the Chicago Bulls. They are making news on and off the court. On the court, they're on a current 3-game winning streak. They host the San Antonio Spurs tonight at 7 o'clock. You can watch that game locally on NBC Sports Chicago and nationally on NBA TV. Off the court, Zach LaVine, who is going to be held out until at least the All-Star break, is going back to reevaluate the injured left knee. Lakeena, I know he says right now he's going to participate in the 3-point contest coming up this weekend in Cleveland, and he hopes to play a few minutes in the All-Star game. Lakeena, should Zach LaVine take the whole All-Star weekend off and rest that knee in preparation for the second half of the season, which starts for them next Wednesday?
I think he should. I think DeMar DeRozan even said it after practice early this morning that look, he has to take care of his body. So, and I think that's what he needs to do. And it's sort of like you don't want this to be an issue, especially down the line, especially if you're trying to advance in the playoffs. So I would say, I know he wants to participate in the 3-point contest. This is his 4th All-Star. Well, actually, his 3rd, I should say, for his 3rd All-Star appearance, I should say. So. Yeah, I would say if I were him, if I were advising him, I probably would say, you know what, just take the next week or 2 off, rest that knee, and just there's no ligament damage, thank goodness. It's just an arthritic, seems like an arthritic, type thing. So that could linger. But look, if you have to rest it up, ice it or whatever you need to do, or a cortisone shot or whatever, just do that. You don't have to go through all that just to just rest. You can go to Cleveland for the All-Star game, but just sit there as a spectator as such. But I would say just make sure you rest that knee. That's what I would do if I were him.
Yeah. If that's what ends up happening, so be it. Like you said, the All-Star game. Even remember Kobe Bryant, he had a knee injury back in 2008. That was the year they lost to the Lakers in the finals there. He only played a couple of minutes in that All-Star game in New Orleans. If that's the situation that has to end up with Zach LaVine, so be it. Just play a couple minutes, get a layup, get a dunk or a jumper, sit down. I'm good with it. If he doesn't play at all, so be it.
Yeah, I'm sure if he does get sit throughout the All-Star break, I'm sure Billy Donovan's going to tell Exposure, look, take care of my guys. So I don't want my guys to look, just sit him. If you have to just let him get a layup or something, or maybe hit a 3-pointer or whatever, and then just go about your way.
So we'll see what happens with Zach LaVine going forward. We'll keep you abreast on any information that if it comes along right here on Second City Sports Zone Chicago. Let's get back to on the court managed Lakeena. As I mentioned, the Bulls on a current 3-game winning streak. Their record stands at 36 wins and 21 losses. Let's review their last game, which took place last Saturday night at the UCS. They defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder 106-101. They needed a heck of an effort from DeMar DeRozan, which he led the team with 38 points on 12 of 24 shooting. Nikolai Vucevic stepped up and had another 30-point game, 31 points to be exact. He was 0 for 4 from 3-point range, but he dominated the paint, shooting 14 of 25 and also grabbed 15 rebounds.
Yeah, they really needed to kind of hang on to be OKC. They've got some players. They got Josh Giddey, who is probably make the case for Rookie of the Year. I think challenge Evan Mobley, but again, we'll get to all that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, look, AO made some key plays late to hold off that. And with DeRozan, I think this is the 6th straight game that a Bull has scored over 30 points. He's the second player to do that. The first player to do that was some guy named Michael Jordan. I don't know who that who that is.
Whoever that is.
Whoever that guy is. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, and look, I think they needed that. Look, Vucevic, look, everything's all quiet the Vucevic front. I mean, no one said anything bad about him. I can't imagine why.
Hey, Bulls Twitter didn't go after you, Lakeena?
Oh yeah, I mean, they were actually very.
I know you're on Bulls Twitter way more than I am, but.
Oh no! I just linger on Bulls Twitter. I only mention them because I think they're a little bit crazy at times. And you on Bulls Twitter know who you are. It's like a few people, but look, 31 points, a double for Vooch, 15 rebounds, so it was definitely he was the sort of the key guy, especially with DeRozan and such, especially with LaVine being out. Someone's got to step up. And with everything, Kobe White had 16 points, and 5 assists. AO had 12 and almost had a double. He himself almost had a triple double too. He had 9 rebounds and 9 assists. So a good team effort there. And look, the rest of these next 3 games are all at home. So, including tonight against the Spurs, I'm sure hopefully to kind of bounce back from that loss to the Spurs a couple of weeks back. We'll get to the Spurs and the record setting that Pop is doing is in a second. But look, this is sort of a time to kind of try to pad that lead, if you will, because the East is sort of it's crowded there in the East, especially near the top. So you got San Antonio, you got Sacramento on Wednesday, you got Thursday, you have you have Sacramento to finish out the All-Star break. So try to win these next 2 games, and then you can rest and sort of make sure that you have that. Hopefully, it'll be in like that top 2 or 3 seeds in the East going into the All-Star break, which would be great. That's a great spot if you're a Bulls fan, no doubt, if you get there.
A couple of things from Saturday's game against OKC. Of course, Kobe White, as you mentioned, he had a couple of key baskets down the stretch. He was 4 or 6 from 3-point land, which added his total to a 16-point total. You only had 9 points off your bench, but it was nice to see Derrick Jones Jr. out there. He was out for a while. I know he fouled out, but it was nice to see an extra body for the Chicago Bulls. Hopefully, you get Javonte Green back, especially after the All-Star break. Of course, we know about Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso and their injuries. Hope you get them back in the next few weeks here, and you can really see how this team operates, because we told you about Alex Caruso. If you watched him with the Lakers, he was an integral part of that 2020 Lakers championship team, bringing that energy and especially from the defensive perspective. And we saw what value he brought here with the Chicago Bulls early before his injury to that dumbass Grayson Allen. But and Alonzo Ball, his outside shot was improving. Of course, he was operating the team from the point guard position. Well, we need those things going into the playoffs. So hopefully the Bulls, even though they didn't make any moves at the trade deadline, we told you they weren't going to do. Hopefully Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas are looking at the buyout market, as we told you guys they're going to do. If they could bring somebody that could patrol the paint from the interior from the on defense. So hopefully things are looking up for the Bulls right now. As you mentioned, they're in the middle of a 6-game homestand. They got some winnable games, and so you can pad that lead, and hopefully you can get some healthy guys back in the coming weeks.
Which is all you can ask for if you're a Bulls fan. I mean,
yes.
they're about a game and a half back from Miami. So, and look, like I said, there's a log jam in the Eastern Conference. So if you can kind of stay there, perhaps maybe even better, try to maybe get into that number 1 seed, because I don't know, Miami's got a couple of tough games this week before the break. I mean, I think you can. I really think you can kind of, get to that point where, okay, who's out there? There are going to be a lot of guys out there in the buyout market. So, if you can get a guy or 2 to probably help you out in the defensive front, especially until, Lonzo and Caruso can get back, you're good. And look, I know the Spurs tonight, that's going to be a tough one. The Spurs are kind of streaky at times. We'll see. That's an NBA TV game at 7:00. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think if you're in a good spot if you're the Bulls right now. If you can win these next 2 against San Antonio and the Kings, you'll be right there near the top or at the top of the conference. And you can look at the evaluate and see who's on the buyout market, because it's going to be another couple of weeks before that that opens up. So it'll be interesting to see which they go, because there are definitely some names out there.
Yeah, so we'll see how it happens with the Bulls in terms of the buyout market going forward. Lakeena, let's get to the best and worst from the association from this past weekend. Of course, there were 2 games yesterday on the Sunday slate right before the big game. It was a Boston Celtics coming from behind to beat the Atlanta Hawks 105-95. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, if it wasn't for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Minnesota Timberwolves would be your surprise story for this season. They continue to roll. They bounced back from their loss in Chicago on Friday with a 129-120 win over the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, that was I actually saw a little bit of that game, and that was actually a crazy game too, because the Minnesota was able to pull away. I think that was more of a garbage. It wasn't as close as the score indicated. I know that they outscored the Pacers outscored the T-Wolves by 8 in the third, but the deficit was too much, and Karl-Anthony Towns didn't play the rest of because of an injury, but it was Anthony Edwards, who you probably say could make a case for some of the postseason awards. He had 37 points and such. Got a lot of key guys off the bench and such. So a nice win for them, and I think that like they could definitely be right there to probably in that because the West is so competitive. They could be right there, like in the cusp of that play-in tournament. They'll be right there, I think.
And speaking of the Western Conference, going back to Saturday's action, the Grizzlies held on to beat the Charlotte Hornets 125-118. That game wasn't as close as it seemed. Looking, I did watch the first half. Charlotte were getting their brains beaten out. John Morant left with an injury. Hopefully he's okay. I know he's supposed to be a starter in the All-Star game coming up this weekend. So the Grizzlies continue to roll. As you mentioned, the Spurs, who the Bulls played tonight, they defeated the Pelicans by 10. I did get a chance to watch this game going back to the Eastern Conference. The Philadelphia 76ers beat the Cleveland Cavaliers by 10. Joel Embiid had a triple-double with the 40-plus points. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, Lakeena, they still are a good team, but they still have some ways to go. Darius Garland did his thing. Jared Allen, who I thought should have been an All-Star this year, he got posterized by Embiid, but he made light of it at the end of the game. So it was a competitive game. Cleveland made a couple of runs late, but it was Joel Embiid that carried the day for Philadelphia. They'll be a better team once they get James Harden after the All-Star break with his quote-unquote hamstring injury. So
quote-unquote. No, but yeah, I mean, I think Embiid, I think he's definitely making a case for MVP, I think.
Yeah.
Steph has had his issues, shooting slumps and such. So I wouldn't be surprised if his name is in the discussion for perhaps maybe MVP. Maybe. I mean, like I said before, he's keeping everything together while when Harden does come back. Probably not till after the All-Star break, very likely. So we'll see what happens there. And going back to that the Spurs win over New Orleans, 1,332 career wins for Pop. He's now just 3 wins away from tying Don Nelson's all-time record of 1,335 wins. He'll get it, but if you're the Bulls, you don't want to get him against you. Honestly, be one step closer. You don't want to do that. So we'll see what happens tonight. I mean, the Clippers had a nice win, edging, holding on against the Mavs.
That was an exciting finish. The Clippers almost gave that game away.
They did. They were kind of like right there. And I know Luka had 45. Despite that, but they weren't able to they were actually up, for a little bit. They were up by like 6 or 7, but they almost pulled it out too. The Mavs is, but the Clippers they hung on. Like I said, they're right there, around 500 or right just below 500. So and right there for the play-in. So we'll see what happens with them. Especially if they go to the buyout market, they dumped a lot of money. Also too the Trailblazers. Anthony Simmons, I think he's holding it down, while Dame is out. He had 30 points in their win against the Knicks. So that was a little bit of a surprising score result.
The Knicks are tanking and taking fast, and I know some folks in New York are asking for Tom Thibodeau's head. Will they get that at the end of the season? Who knows? But things are going in the wrong direction for New York, considering where they were at a year ago. The NBA Saturday Night Showcase, Lakeena saw the Golden State Warriors holding on to a 2-point win over the Los Angeles Lakers, 117-115. Klay Thompson helped carry the day for the Golden State Warriors. LeBron James, make your free throws, young man. Make your free throws.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see if Bayless had a field day this morning on Speak for Yourself on their show, but yeah, he missed a lot of free throws, and I'm sure he's kicked himself to LeBron. They should have put that game. The Lakers should have put that game away, and they didn't because of him missing free throws. So, and Klay Thompson was able to make some key baskets late to win that game for the Warriors, and the Lakers. Just when we thought they kind of figured it out, they show you why they've been inconsistent. So
yeah. Yep. In the Denver Nuggets, they're in the middle of their East Coast road trip. They lost by 6 at Boston on Friday, but they got an important win at Toronto on Saturday.
That was fun. I saw the highlights.
110 to 109.
That was a really good game. That game, like I said, it came down to the wire. Another, Jokic, led the way with 28, and it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, the Raptors had their chances, but they just couldn't pull it off. And I think Jokic, we'll see if if they can. You will see the status of Jamal Murray. There's rumors that he might come back sometime next month. So hopefully maybe they can put a run together. Denver can, and like I said before, doing it in the playoffs. I know they want to try and do that. So hopefully they'll be at full strength, and I know they've had some injuries too. It was despite besides Murray being still being out, but Jokic, to his credit, he's doing what he can, so you got to commend him for that.
Yeah, and also too, we talk about the Suns and the Warriors being the top 2 teams in the Western Conference, and rightfully so, and everybody else going home and play. But it's going to be a logjam between spots 4, 5, and 6. Who can stay out at 7th in that play-in tournament spot? It's going to be a logjam between Denver, Dallas, and Utah, I believe.
And they're gonna be facing each other a lot in this, after the All-Star break. So
yes,
this could definitely be, who actually ends up, getting that 6th seed and not having to play in the play-in. That's, it's gonna be it's gonna be a fight. So it's gonna get down to the wire in that sense. Let's see.
The Miami Heat had a big win on Saturday against the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, 115 to 111.
11 in a row losses in a row for Brooklyn, and I honestly don't know what to say about Brooklyn at this point. You hope that Kevin Durant can't come back fast enough for the Nets, and I don't know if that'll do anything, but I mean, Kyrie's doing what he can to kind of hold it together, but we'll see if Ben Simmons makes his start, but I don't know what to say about Brooklyn at this point. It's sort of like they were the number 1 seed, about a month ago, and look how far they've fallen. So I don't know. They're Boston's won 11 in a row. I mean, 9 in a row, I should say. So
who saw that coming?
No one did too. We'll see if they can keep it. I'm sure they're a little admit that the All-Star break's coming, so it might the momentum. But going back to Brooklyn, Sid.
Yeah, going back to Brooklyn, you mentioned Kevin Durant's injury, which derailed their season up to this point. We were talking about them, a team that the Bulls have to be worried about, especially that they beat them early last month. Now things change, but the sooner Durant gets back, the better it would be for Brooklyn. Of course, Ben Simmons will make his debut sometime after the All-Star break. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, let's get to the schedule for this upcoming week, starting with tonight's schedule, Monday's schedule. We talked about the Spurs and the Bulls. You can watch that game nationally, on NBA TV at 7 o'clock tonight. But at 6 o'clock, the Pistons and Wizards will do battle in our nation's capital. Sacramento Kings will travel to Brooklyn to take on the Nets. Can the Kings actually steal a win at Barclays Center? It's very possible.
Maybe.
It's very possible. Sacramento is favored by 2 points. At 6:30 across the river, we'll have the OKC Thunder will travel to MSG to take on the struggling New York Knicks.
Well, yeah, and Anthony Simmons, who's been sort of like the guy, since after the trade, after he was traded, he and the Blazers will face Milwaukee as they start their East Coast road trip again, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they can steal one in Milwaukee. We'll have to wait and see. I know Milwaukee's kind of been they've kind of struggled late, so we'll see if they can kind of bounce back. Toronto and New Orleans. Toronto will try to bounce back from their loss to Denver. Orlando. Speaking of Denver, they host Orlando at 8 o'clock. Houston at Utah, and Golden State the Clippers. That's the second half of that NBA TV doubleheader at 9:30. That should be interesting to see. Well, the Clippers can steal one from the Warriors.
Going to Tuesday's schedule, which is tomorrow, Cleveland will visit Atlanta at 6:30. Also at 6:30, the Dallas Mavericks will travel to South Beach to take on the Miami Heat. The first game of that Tuesday, formerly known as Players Only doubleheader, it will be Boston at Philadelphia. That's going to be a great matchup there at 6:30. At 7 o'clock, Indiana will face Milwaukee. Also at 7 o'clock, 2 of the surprising teams in the league. The Hornets are now back at 500. They'll travel to Minnesota to take on the Timberwolves. Their record is at 30-27. Also at 7 o'clock, the Memphis Grizzlies will take on the New Orleans Pelicans. In the second half of that TNT Tuesday doubleheader, it's the Clippers at the Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix with the best record in the league, although the Clippers did beat them the last time they played, so we'll see what happens in that game. Wednesday, hump day, you got Atlanta and Orlando. That's a 6 o'clock game. Detroit and Boston. That should be a fun one.
Remember that matchup used to be good up until the last few years?
Way back. Yeah. Oh gosh. Good times. Washington, Indiana. The first game of the ESPN doubleheader. Teams that have been, terrible lately. Brooklyn and New York. The battle of the boroughs. We'll see. Which borough, wins there.
We'll see how
Bulls-
long Stephen A. Smith yells about the Knicks.
Oh gosh. Oh,
And how
Jesus.
Kevin Durant will put him in his place on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with all his burner accounts too. We'll see what happens. The Bulls with their last game before the All-Star break. They host Sacramento at 7:00. Portland and Memphis. That should be interesting one. We'll see if John Morant is back. I know he got banged up over the weekend. Toronto and Minnesota. That should be a fun one at 7:00. San Antonio and OKC at 7. At 8:00, you got Houston and Phoenix. And Denver and Golden State. I'm a little surprised that this game didn't get the last part of that doubleheader, but it is what it is. The game that did, Utah and the Lakers. Both teams have kind of been, although Utah is starting to kind of catch up a little bit. I know they've had some injury issues. The Lakers are just having issues. We'll see if which team can kind of overcome the issues, because this is the last game for both teams before the All-Star break.
Yep. So that wraps up your Wednesday schedule. I'll have should have the Lakers and Jazz on the big screen. I'll have the Nuggets and Warriors via my computer.
Me too, probably.
So that should be fun wrapping up the Wednesday schedule. One game on Thursday before the All-Star break. Actually, not one game.
Well,
that's fine. It should have been one, but some of these games are makeup games.
Those are makeup games,
we'll go through them.
Yeah, the only like I said, that Philadelphia Milwaukee game, that's a TNT game at 7:30. That's actually supposed to be the only game, but these other 4 games that you're seeing here, we'll go through them real quick. Miami and Charlotte at 6.
Yes.
Brooklyn hosted Washington at 6:30. Dallas and New Orleans, and also Houston and LA. These the Clippers, I should say. Those 4 are all makeup games. So that's why you're seeing 4. Usually it was supposed to have just been one that Philly Milwaukee matchup on TNT, but because of COVID and such, these are all makeup games. So
yeah, and that's your schedule for this week in the NBA. One last time out for us right here on the Monday edition of Second City Sports, live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. When we return, we'll go through college basketball. The Fighting Illini had a big win at home against Northwestern yesterday. Purdue had a bad loss last week, but they bounced back with a big win. What's up with the Michigan Wolverines? And we'll give you our key games for this week coming up in the college basketball world. Loyola Chicago, they had a big game yesterday. We'll get you results of that. And we'll have a whole lot more. Plus, yours surely will dig in the crates for our Black History moment for this week. All that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Throws the fade, back shoulder. Cooper Kupp's got it. Cooper Kupp brings it in. Touchdown! Touchdown! Touchdown, LA! With 1:25 remaining, the Rams are back on the high side. 15 plays, 79 yards.
Rams radio with call at the Super Bowl. A 79-yard drive capped by Cooper Kupp's touchdown reception with 1:25 remaining pushed the Rams to a 23-20 win over the Bengals. The Rams winning their first NFL title since 1999 when they were based in St. Louis. It's their first representing Los Angeles since 1951. Kupp was named the Super Bowl MVP, 4 receptions, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns.
For lightning fast sports updates, download the Score app. It's free and one of the most popular sports apps in North America. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
I need postcards printed and designed. Oh, and a targeted direct mail campaign.
It's possible at Staples.
I need my presentation printed, bound, and perfect.
Also possible with Staples Print Big Promise. Your small business marketing will make a big impact. And right now, get 20% off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Explore what's new at Staples, the working and learning store. Ends 2/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details.
Exergen would like you to know about an important new study by the FDA. It confirms what the medical community has always known. Non-contact thermometers are not accurate, and they fail to meet FDA requirements for accuracy in labeling. With new strains of COVID on the rise, we can't afford to tolerate rampant false temperature readings from non-contact thermometers. Accurate temperature measurements are essential. You need Exergen thermometers because they are accurate and backed by over 100 clinical studies. Be sure, be accurate with Exergen. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the hashtag Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Last segment of the show for today. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. Excuse me. Let's go to the world of college basketball. Let's start out locally. The Fighting Illini, ranked number 13 in the country after losing bad at Purdue last Wednesday night, especially that bad second half performance, and Trent Frazier got nicked up in that game. They came back with a vengeance by defeating the Northwestern Wildcats 73-66. Kofi Cockburn had 19 points, 15 rebounds on the 8 of 11 shooting. As I mentioned, Trent Frazier in 33 minutes of action, he only had 7 points, 6 assists off of 2 of 7 shooting. But they had 14 points off the bench, courtesy of Mr. Melendez. He had 14 points. And RJ Melendez had 14 points coming off the bench. And Aaron Cambello had 4 points in 16 minutes of action coming off the bench. Lakeena, it was important to get that bad taste out of their mouths of you to find the Illini. Northwestern gave you some fits in that first meeting a few weeks ago, but it was nice to get a win on your home court, sweeping that season series from the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, they had their chance of winning that game too. Of Northwestern. I mean, that was close for a little bit. So the fact that they were able to pull it out, I think, Illinois did late. They were able to pull away, and I think that's definitely, especially since they're right there, still right there too for the conference title. So I think that definitely helps them with their confidence wise. And they were able to. Kofi Cockburn had 19. I know he got banged up. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully he can come back, won't miss any games. But yeah, it was it was a nice win for Illinois. Keeping up in the conference. Purdue, speaking of Purdue, they pulled away. They were able to bounce back from, that was sort of like a head scratcher. Just when you thought that maybe Purdue, you probably say maybe put them into perhaps maybe, for the Final Four. They lose by 24 to Michigan. Oh, okay. They were to bounce back against Maryland. They actually needed that because, Maryland, look, to their credit, I know a lot of weird things have been happening, to that program, But they played hard They pushed Purdue to the point and to the break. And look, our buddy Spiro Adidas, called that game for CBS yesterday. And look, they were able to pull it out. The Purdue did. So, and look, we'll see if Purdue can kind of, get back into their groove because we're getting down to the wire here in some of these conferences in a couple of weeks ago. This conference tournament is about to start. So we'll see if Purdue can kind of finish strong.
And speaking of the Big Ten, we saw some mixed results going back to Saturday's action. Number 14, Wisconsin. The Badgers got upset by Rutgers 73-65.
Rutgers is putting together a nice resume. Like I said, they got the whole quadrant. You're gonna be hearing this a lot. Quadrant 2, 3, whatever, 16, whatever. But yeah, they've beaten Illinois. Ron Harper Jr. led the way with 21, and
he is solid, folks. I think he'll be a pro.
Yeah, he's definitely been, he might be like a draft pick. He decided to come back, finish up his senior season. And look, they've beaten Michigan State, they've beaten Ohio State, they're putting together a really nice resume. So yeah, could they be a team to look out for? Should they get to the Big Ten tournament? I mean, look, they've got Illinois on Wednesday, so that could definitely at home. So that's been kind of like a house of horrors for ranked teams this year. So like the teams I've mentioned. Yeah. So they can put together a nice resume, more resume wins, more quad 1 wins for Rutgers.
Staying with the Big Ten, number 17, Michigan State, the Spartans get a big win at home, defeating Indiana 76-61. Big loss for Indiana.
Yeah, bounce back win for them because they've lost to Rutgers a couple of games ago. Indiana, like I said, they've been inconsistent after you thought that maybe they could get something together after upsetting Purdue. That they've been inconsistent. So I think they got bum rushed by Illinois, and they got hammered by Michigan State. So unfortunately, and I think some stuff they lost to Northwestern too. I think some stuff had happened with some of those with Mike Woodson, some of the players here in Chicago. I guess they stayed out late than they weren't supposed to, or something of that effect. And they were suspended for that game against Northwestern. So that's probably why they lost. But yeah, it's like, okay. But yeah, I mean, just the inconsistency of them. But yeah, look, if you're Wisconsin, you'll take the bounce. That was a nice bounce back win for Michigan State, I should say.
As I said, watch out for Ohio State. They're ranked number 16 in the country. The Buckeyes going to Michigan and defeat the Wolverines. My guy, Jawan Howard, 68-57. Time's starting to run out on Michigan, Lakeena. Do you think they can turn around? Because they had to finish strong here because they're going to need to have a strong performance in Indianapolis next month in the Big Ten tournament.
They don't just have the wins to do it yet, and I think if they're starting to run out of time. Michigan is. I mean, I think I think it's just bad luck, for Michigan. You thought that maybe they could kind of get it together. They didn't. I mean, they get with they have to go at Wisconsin. They get Illinois at home. Rutgers. They host Rutgers too, so maybe that can help them. With their resume. Michigan State too. And also at Ohio State to finish up the season. So maybe if they can win maybe 2 or 3 of those, maybe that can help them perhaps maybe freshen up their resume. But right now, it doesn't look good for them.
Yeah, and going back to college basketball locally, as I mentioned before the break, Loyola Chicago, the Ramblers got a big win yesterday at home, defeating Northern Iowa, the Panthers, 85-58.
That was a nice win for Drew Ballantyne and his Ramblers. They need that win because it's a log jam in that conference. They're leading right now by percentage points. They're leading by a half game over both Northern Iowa, I should say, and Missouri State, who they've beaten in last.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Week.
The Missouri State win last week was key on the road.
Yeah,
that's going to help them.
Also, too, Bradley's right there too. Yeah, 1.5 back. I mean, some of the bracketologists, they actually have them perhaps still going to the tournament, even if they don't win the Missouri Valley Conference. But again, I think you don't want to have to depend on that. I would say just go ahead and just try to win your conference tournament. I'm sure they're going to try and do just that. They still got like some tough games left. The Ramblers do before. They're one of the first conferences up in their the conference tournament. So they get Northern Iowa to finish up. They got a pretty, I don't want to say easy schedule. They got a light schedule. They still got to play Drake at home. On Saturday. They got Evansville. They're a tough team. They got Valpo Wednesday. They're pretty tough. They finish up against Northern Iowa too in a couple of weeks. So we'll see where they're at. They can, as long as they don't go into free fall and go 0-5, I think they'll still be fine, especially if they make it to the final of the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. But it's going to depend on the other conference tournament. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And let's go to the Big 12. A couple of results to pass along to you from Saturday. It was now the defending national champion Baylor Bears, ranked number 10. They defeated number 20 Texas 80-63. Number 8 Kansas, they had to hold on at home to defeat the Fighting Porter Mosels, as you call them, the Oklahoma Sooners, 71-69.
Yeah, they really had to hang on for that one. As far as Baylor is concerned, they lost one of their key rebounders for the year, so that's good. That's a tough loss there for them. But yeah, still, Kansas. This would be what 16, for like 17 or something, 18, Big 12 regular season title. Should they hang on? So we'll see what happens. They still got a couple of tough games left over the next few weeks, and then they have to play Baylor again too. So. We'll see what happens there. USC had a nice win against UCLA. I think it's like 4 in a row for them over UCLA in the regular season. So they needed that win. That's what they're starting to kind of find their groove a little bit. Drew Peterson. No, not that Drew Peterson, folks. I know some people were kind of like saw that name and remember. Illinois fans will know Illinois people will know what we're talking about. But I'll just leave it at that. But
Google it.
27 points for him, leading the way for. It was actually ended up being a great game, as it usually is with these two teams play each other, especially when they're both are good. Because I think that's when college basketball is great, when both UCLA and USC are good, and in this case, they are again this year. So that was a fun matchup. Villanova held off Seton Hall 73-67 with a nice win there. They're one step closer to clinching the Big East tournament, Big East Conference, I should say, especially with Marquette losing to Butler. That was a bad loss for them. The Fighting Shaka Smarks, as I call them. Butler was able to pull away from them by 6. Providence, came back. I think they were down like 15 or something against DePaul, which that was sort of that was a case where you play down your competition. I know DePaul's good. I know they've without a couple of their key guys right now, but they're a fighting team. You give Tony Somerville credit for at least keeping the fight in their guys, but that would have been a bad loss for Providence had they lost that game. Oscar Shibwe had 27 points, 19 rebounds. Kentucky's win over Florida. He's probably your leader in the clubhouse for Player of the Year in college basketball. Such a sweet kid, with a heart of gold, and also a pretty darn good player. He's averaging a double-double, and also he's been averaging like 18 rebounds, which is I think the highest ever, in men's hoops. So.
Yeah, my guy Penny Hardaway got back on track with a 69,
big win, yeah.
59 win over number 6 Houston. Houston's a
needed
very
that.
good team, folks.
They
And
needed
on the
that.
flip side for Memphis, are they finally starting to turn around? And it's going to be tough in that conference that they're in. I believe it's the American Conference. I want to say Conference USA, but these conferences change names so many damn times. It's not even funny. But big win for the Memphis Tigers.
Yeah, this should definitely help them with their resume because they needed that win, especially doing it on the road, which is not easy at Houston. So that was a big win, and you could tell how happy he was in the post game interview he did because Penny, I think they've had a hard season. They just haven't been meshing well. They're starting to now. They're starting to kind of mesh. Now. I mean, they've won 5 in a row, so they got Cincy. Tomorrow that should they should be able to win that game. Temple's been pretty good, so they play Temple. Wichita State, they finish up their regular season against Houston on the 6th of March. So if they can win a couple of those games and perhaps even better sweep Houston, especially if they advance pretty far in the conference tournaments, that should help them.
Yeah, a couple of the scores from Saturday. Auburn had no problem with Texas A&M. And the Tennessee Volunteers, ranked number 19 in the country, they take care of Vanderbilt 73-64.
Yeah, that was an interesting one too. State rivals playing each other. Because I got the best of St. Mary's. They're the new number 1 team in the country. Yay. We'll see if they can hang on. I mean, they've had, they kind of beat it pretty handily. Drew Timme had 25 points. They pulled away from St. Mary's, and that they beat it pretty handily in that game. Let's see. Is there anything else of note? Speaking of the bubble teams, Davis is a bubble team. They took a step back. They lost to Rhode Island. So that's as an 8-10 team that they are hoping to get multiple bids. This loss, unfortunately, does not help them. So they lost by 7 to Rhode Island. So if you're one of those teams, if you're the A10, you're kind of like, praying that they can bounce back because you're hoping to get multiple bids from that conference, and this will not help you.
And speaking of another bubble team, as we get into our schedule for the top 25 for this week, starting with tonight's game at 8 o'clock on ESPN. Number 6, Kansas will host the Oklahoma State Cowboys. The Cowboys checking in with a 12-12 mark.
Yeah, unfortunately, Oklahoma State will not be participating in any postseason tournaments this year because of stuff that happened, in the previous regime. That's a whole nother topic. But I think this should be interesting. It's always interesting between those two teams, Oklahoma State and Kansas. But that should be a fun game at 8 o'clock on ESPN. So.
Yeah, tomorrow's schedule, Tuesday, looks like this. Number 19, Michigan will travel to Penn State. That's at 5:30 on the Big Ten Network. At 6 o'clock on ESPN, Wake Forest will travel to Camden Yards. Good grief. We'll travel to Cameron Indoor Stadium to take on Duke. I got baseball on my mind. We'll get to baseball in just a second. The Wake Forest will play number 9 Duke tomorrow at 6 o'clock on ESPN. At 6 p.m. at the same time on ESPN2, number 20, Texas will go to Oklahoma to take on the Fighting Porter Moses, as Lakeena will call them, the Oklahoma Sooners. At 7 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, number 10, Villanova will take on number 8, Providence.
That should be
at
fun.
7:30 on the Big Ten Network, number 18, Ohio State will host Minnesota. At 8 p.m. on ESPN, part of their Tuesday night doubleheader. Number 4, Kentucky will travel to number 16, Tennessee to face the Volunteers. At 8 p.m. on ESPN2, number 15, Wisconsin will travel to Indiana. That's a big game for Indiana.
Yeah, that would desperately.
Yeah, and at 8 o'clock on the SEC Network, number 23, Arkansas will travel to Missouri to take on the Tigers. And that's your schedule for Tuesday.
Yeah, 8 o'clock, Wyoming, number 22. They're new team in the top 25. They're from the Mountain West Conference. Remember those old Mountain West Conference from those the old whack from back in the day, those 8-11.
Wiggity whack.
Yeah. Well, they play New Mexico, Lobos, and guess who's coaching that team now? Richard Pitino. Guess who one of the players he's coaching? Jamal Mashburn's son, Jamal Mashburn
I heard
Jr.
about
So,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
they're making us
so
feel old, Lakeena.
I know, right? Now that they've had, but they got a young squad. This is Richard Pitino's first year. I think next year is really what they're playing for. But this should be a good game though too. That's at 8:00. I'm sure it's gonna be streamed somewhere. And Butler faces DePaul on FS1, and also too Utah State, San Diego State. Those are other teams from the Mountain West that could very well end up being a part of that bubble. So that should be a big one there on CBS Sports Network.
Let's go to Wednesday's schedule. Number 12, Illinois will travel to Rutgers. That's at 6:00 on the Big Ten Network.
Upset alert! Upset alert!
It could be, yeah. It could be big game for both teams. At 6 p.m. on ESPN2, Mississippi State will travel to Alabama to take on the Crimson Tide. Alabama is ranked number 25 in the country. At 7:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, this is the schedule continuing for Wednesday. Number 24, UConn will host Seton Hall. At 8:00 on SEC Network, number 2, Auburn will face Vanderbilt. At the same time, 8:00 on the Big Ten Network, number 5, Purdue will travel to Evanston to take on the Northwestern Wildcats.
Could be upset alert too. Could be upset alert for them too.
At 8 p.m. on ESPN2, number 7, Baylor will travel to Texas Tech to face the number 11 ranked Red Raiders. And at 10 o'clock, late night action on ESPN2, number 1, Gonzaga will face Pepperdine.
Just want another Mountain West conference matchup on FS1 against 9 o'clock. Boise State and the Air Force. Boise State's one of the bubble teams, and I'm sure in Colorado that place is going to be rocking over at the Air Force Academy. So I'm sure they would love to play spoiler over there in Colorado Springs. So that's one matchup that that I'm sure Boise State, the Broncos, could be on upset alert.
Let's wrap up the schedule for Thursday in the top 25. Number 21, Murray State will host Austin Peay. That's at 6 p.m. on ESPNU. At 6:30,
undefeated in the Ohio Valley right now, folks. They could get to know those guys. And Murray State, John Morant's old school. So that should be there could be a team that could break some hearts. When we get to the tournament, but again, that's still a long ways away. So keep going.
At 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, we'll have number 3, Arizona. The Wildcats will host the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State 3-19. Good grief.
Well, remember a lot of those guys that they made it to the Elite Eight, and a lot of those guys, those are veteran guys, and they're all gone. So that's why that's why I know, Coach Tinkle, got a nice little contract extension thanks to that. But a lot of those guys are gone, so he's basically starting from scratch. That's why with the 3-19 record.
At 8 o'clock, we'll have number 14, Houston. The Cougars will host UCF. That's the University of Central Florida for those of you scoring at home.
Not going to be a very good mood, Houston. Houston won't be in a very good mood.
Exactly.
Those guys will not be in a good mood.
Yep. At 10 o'clock on FS1, we'll have Washington State. The Cougars will travel to Los Angeles to face number 13, UCLA Bruins. And at 10:30 on the Pac-12 Network, number 17, the USC Trojans will host the Washington Huskies. So that's your schedule on the top 25 for this week.
Yeah, should be some good matchups. Like I said, we're going down to the wire with last 2.5 weeks. So a lot of teams are going to be fighting for bubbles and position. We've mentioned a few of them too. So we'll see if they can, get out of that bubble.
Yeah. Before we wrap up today's show with our Black History moment, Lakeena, let's get to baseball quickly. As we talked about on our last episode, which was last Friday, MLB, PA, and the owners met on Saturday for an hour. Little progress was made, but as we told you guys, spring training was supposed to start this week. I know there hasn't been an official announcement yet, but we all know there's going to be a delay to the start of spring training. Lakeena, as I said before, I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm a realist first. We still have almost 2 weeks left in the month of February. I think they should get a deal done by March 3rd, which is 3rd or 4th, which March 4th, I believe, is Friday. I think if you're smart, if you're the MLBPA, you want to hammer out a schedule where you can get these guys into camp and have 4 weeks of spring training where you can start the season on time. I think that's what they're trying to do right now, but I know they're still far apart on some issues, but hopefully they can meet again sometime this week, because meeting once a week is not helping. You still have some time, but not a whole lot of time if you want to start the season on time. You cannot play with the public's patience anymore. You have way more options, and this is the time for them to shine. I know the NBA's on this All-Star break coming up this weekend, and you still talk about college basketball, but This is your time to shine if you're MLB and you're still in the labor dispute. This does not look good. I know it seems bleak right now, but someone's got to take the bull by the horns and it has a sense of urgency and get this thing moving.
Yeah, will there be though? I think that's the thing. Will there be that sense of urgency that needs to be shown here? And I know they've made some concessions. The players have. They made a couple of concessions, but it seems like after this weekend, after this past weekend's meeting, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of progress. And it's sort of one of those things where if you want to follow some guys, go to Jesse Rogers and Jeff Passanable from ESPN. They kind of have everything sort of mapped up, and there are still no plans to meet. So. As of this recording. So I don't know what can be done. I think, look, I would love to say that we may not miss games, but we're at that point now where they're supposed to be meeting, pitcher to catch supposed to be meeting as we speak in spring training. So unfortunately with this going on, it doesn't look good at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but hopefully things can turn around as soon as possible and we can get the regular season done on time and perhaps a 4-week spring training schedule. You listen to Second City Sports, the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sid, Lakeena here with you. Let's wrap up today's show with something positive. Lakeena, this is our Black History moment. This is Black History Month, and we're doing our best to shine light on some great Black musicians and other things along that line. Lakeena, I'll pull this one out of Big Mama's Craze today. Is technically mine because she's passed away, but I think people is going to enjoy this. Well, I'll describe it the best way I can. But for those of you listening back on our replay at War Anchor, today from 1981, the album's called Street Songs from the late great Rick James. There he is with his guitar standing on the street corner in those red boots. And of course, his uncle is the great this is what happens when you turn 30. Franklin. I forgot. Yeah. I forgot his name, but it'll pop back in my mind in a minute. But this was a great album from 1981. Melvin Franklin.
Yes,
that's the uncle of the great Ray James. Of course, Melvin Franklin, the deep voice guy from the Temptations. And the band played on. I know it's a bad impression, but you get the point. Songs on this album: "Give It to Me, Baby," "Ghetto Life," "Make Love to Me," and "Mr. Policeman." That's on side 1. Side 2, "Super Freak." You should be familiar with that, especially our younger listeners. MC Hammer stole that in 1990 for his hit "You Can't Touch This." "Fire and Desire" with the late great Tina Marie. Great song. Check out some of the documentaries on her on YouTube. We'll get behind the scenes of why that song was made. "Call Me Up" and "Below the Funk," in parentheses, Pastor J. Lakeena, look at this cover on the back. He's surrounded by a policeman and a few women. And Rick James was the Dennis Rodman of his day. Today we salute Rick James in the album Street Songs from 1981. No, I did not borrow this. No, I did not buy it off eBay. You cannot have it. And no, you cannot have it. So we'll salute Rick James' album Street Songs from 1981 today. Lakeena, any last thoughts on about Rick James? Did you like his music? Didn't you like it?
Oh yeah, I liked his music. Like I said before, I mean, look, Super Freak, I think was like a top 5 hits, back in 1981. So, I think everybody remembers that song. Like you said, that Hammer sampled that hook, for his mega hit "You Can't Touch This," like about 10 years later. So yeah, those are remember those songs, a couple of those other songs you mentioned from that album. And look, once it's unfortunate that the drugs kind of took over his life because he was such a great singer songwriter. So he produced the Mary Jane Girls. Yes, it's not what you think, folks. Real relax on that. And and also too, he co-wrote Eddie Murphy's hit "Party All the Time." So
they like to party all the time. Woo!
Oh, hey, look, that was a top 10 song for
yes,
him,
it was.
for Eddie Murphy. So yeah, he wore that with a badge of honor. So yeah, I mean, look, he had some great music. I was talking about Rick James, and it was just unfortunate that of course Tina Marie and such. They had a tumultuous relationship. You go back to watch Behind the Music, featuring Tina. She really gets into their relationship, and yeah.
And also watch Unsung. You can find it on YouTube, both on Rick James and Tina Marie. You'll get some more great insight.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, just great music, and and like I said before, it's a shame that drugs kind of took over his side. So, you know.
And I'll say this too. Shout out to comedian Dave Chappelle doing his show back some years ago. Even though he was making fun of Rick James, he actually brought Rick James back. And remember, Lakeena, turned out to be their last appearance together before Rick James unfortunately passed away in 2004. Remember, I believe it was the second year of the BET Awards. It was him and, of course, now the late Tina Marie performed Fire Desire for the last time. That was the last time we saw both of them in public together. It turned out to be Rick James' last public appearance before he passed away. I thought that was a great performance. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube somewhere. But Dave Chappelle brought Rick James back into our conscious as a society. So we'll give Dave Chappelle his props on that as well. So like I said, Rick James was a creator of the punk funk. Of course, at that time, new wave music was coming out and Brit pop was coming out at that time. So, and he stood out from the rest. So he was truly a genius. And we miss him. So his music lives on forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you listen to all the songs, you might recognize some of the hooks. So folks, just keep a look out for them. Just want to shout out, someone who made history herself, Erin Jackson. She's a speed skater.
Yes.
In the Beijing Olympics, 500 meters. Won the gold medal early yesterday morning. They showed it last night in the primetime coverage after the Super Bowl and on NBC. If you guys didn't see it yesterday, she actually skated out during the trials. But Elizabeth Howe, who is her teammate, they trained the same facility. They've known each other for years. She won the trials, but actually gave her spot to Erin, and that she was able to come in and had a great time. She won it pretty handily. So, a good call by her, and that way, she was able to make it. Brittany Bowe, I should say, that's her name, Brittany Bowe. That she gave her spot to Erin, and she was able to make history.
Well, congratulations to Miss Jackson for making history. What a great way to end this episode of Second City Sports, the Monday edition, right here live and in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. We had a very good Super Bowl, Lakeena. We talked about college football. College football. Good grief. College basketball. Of course, the Bulls, they still have their issues going on, even though they're on a 3-game winning streak. The NBA, by the time we reconvene here on Friday, Lakeena, the NBA will be at his All-Star break. Hopefully we bring our illustrious panel back to discuss what happened during the first half of the season in preview NBA All-Star weekend. Hopefully baseball, the MLBPA and the owners will get back together and perhaps make some real progress. We'll see about that. And college basketball is going into its final stretch of the regular season.
Yeah, a lot. Yes, football's over with. We're gonna get into the whole thing, with the off season stuff and moves and whatnot, cap room and whatnot. But look, there's still a lot going on, like you said, with everything. So there's still a lot of sports to enjoy, folks. Yeah, yes, football's over. Yes, it's it sucks, but you know what though? Look, the NFL, it doesn't stop. The season does not stop. So it's going to still be a lot of stuff happening. So, but
March 16th, the new calendar year will be here before you know it. All right, Lakeena, close us out.
Yeah, the season will be here before you know it too next season. So please don't get discouraged, folks. With that said, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to War on Anchor to catch our podcast, Second City Sports, and follow War Media on WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure you catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, right here from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And keep it right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I think What's Up Cubs is on tonight at 6 p.m.
Yep.
And Ivor Vargas, I believe, has his Bears Super Bowl recap show later today, I believe, at 4 o'clock on Sports Zone Chicago. So keep it right here for more sports content.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, hopefully we'll have that NBA panel for you, our mid-season panel, if you will, coming up on Friday too. And also, too, Miss Christine Manica will also be with us too. We'll figure out what we're gonna do. Once season's over with. We'll still have her on like probably every other week or maybe every couple of weeks or something, or once a month or something. So she's still gonna be on, folks. So don't worry about that. But with that said, for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Talking about ghetto life. Holla!